Hi, what's your name?
Jason Cole.
Jason, good to know you.
You too, Chris.
Why don't we start off and tell me about yourself, give me a little professional background.
Sure, no problems. Let me start with my education, I guess. I was your typical 6-year-old wanted to be an astronaut. Most kids grow out of that when you're about 13, 14 years old, and for whatever reason, I didn't. At 17, I went to Space Academy in Huntsville, and I ended up doing a degree in particle physics at Southampton.
Oh, okay.
Sort of halfway through my degree, it became pretty apparent that astronaut wasn't the right way for me, so I went to the careers office and looked at what opportunities were open, and I decided to join one of the big accounting firms in London. So back in the day, I joined Price-Waterhouse Coopers, based out of London Bridge, and rather than going into audit, I actually went into one of their sort of brand new practices covering risk management.
Isn't it great to have a foundation with a top firm?
Absolutely. I love that company.
Isn't
for sure.
that a blessing?
Absolutely. So I joined the company. The risk management department that I joined only had about 50 people in it back then. And that was actually very beneficial for me during my career because I was there in that department for 7, 8 years, and we grew from 50 people to 1,500 people during that time. At the end of my career there, I actually ran the SAP Security and Controls practice. I guess I got like a 7-year itch or something and wanted a new challenge. One of the vendors that I was working with, a South African company called Secure Info, offered me the chance to set up the sort of US operation of their company, which I took. I went down to Johannesburg, picked out my team of people, and literally landed in Philadelphia with an empty suitcase and a dream. So I was hired to do that. We basically set up office space. We got people in, admin staff, what have you, and set up the US arm of this company. I did that for probably, 12, 18 months. At which point I went back, or I handed it across to one of my colleagues, went back into my more traditional role, which is project managing, specifically sort of IT or SAP security projects.
Well, what brought you to Las Vegas?
Pretty my wife. She's born and raised here. We got married up on Mount Charleston.
Oh, very good.
So
pretty up there.
Very much so, yeah, very much so.
Well, what would you say if I asked you what had distinguished you in your field? I mean, what sort of set you apart?
I think if it were like one-word answer, I'd say growth. I mean, certainly at PwC we had 50-fold increase in headcount. We had 75 times the gross revenue from when I joined to when I left. If you look at what I brought to the table to get that growth, certainly leadership must be one of the main skills. Leadership is sort of all-encompassing for me. It covers hiring, managing, training, retention, all those sort of aspects. Certainly from a retention viewpoint, I had the highest rating out of any senior manager at Price-Waterhouse Coopers for keeping my staff.
Very good.
From a training viewpoint, the final 2 years with the company, I actually was their head trainer in the Philadelphia training office for SAP Security and Controls. So leadership would be one. Probably issue management's another area where customers and companies have said I do very well in. I'm very much a hands-on sort of project manager. If an issue comes up, I don't hand it off to 12 other people and forget about it. I want to be there. I want to be in the detail, see the problem get resolved over time, and be there with the stakeholders when they sign off on that problem. Very much a complete-to-finisher type of personality for sure. Well,
give me an example of where that approach and that mindset has paid off.
Okay, let me go back a few years actually. One of the very first projects that I managed was an SAP security implementation for a small pharmaceutical company in England. And we turned up there with a blank sheet of paper. We didn't even have a manual about how the system worked. It was such a new technology to us. And we threw headcount at it. We figured out sort of meandered down our road, and 4 or 5 months later we had a solution. But I came out of that project and talked to my partner and said, you know what, if we'd have had a tool or an accelerator with us, this piece of software that could have done this, this, and this, we'd have done it so much quicker. So I wrote a proposal for the partner committee, which was approved. I had a substantial budget, and I flew out to Philly again, actually where our development staff was based, and we developed functional specs, technical specs, and I saw that project through to completion, every little element of it. We built a product that basically would accelerate and control security implementations.
Right.
We rolled it out to a company in Delaware. Now, back in those days, most projects we did were fixed price, and the resource we put on the projects was so expensive, we never came in under budget. Well, this one project, we came in 40% under budget. And after the project was finished, we sat down and went down the project plan and said, well, where do we save time and money? And in each instance, it was because of the product we built. So we rolled this product out globally, and when I left, I think the gross revenue worldwide for security and controls implementations was $500 million. So you can imagine saving 40% on that is an awful lot of money.
Huge, huge. Well, I guess maybe you've already answered this in a way, but just sum up for me why you think a company should hire you.
Okay, I think you're right. We've covered a fair number of points. Certainly leadership. motivation, vision would be key elements of my personality that I can bring to the table. Probably the other element I haven't discussed yet is sort of a go-get-it already, sort of ready always type of mentality.
Yeah.
Give an example of that. I know about 5-6 years ago, I was sitting in my office in Philly, and I had a call from the CEO from Johannesburg, and he said, Jason, we've just got a gold sponsor spot at an SAP conference next week in Vegas. I'm like, okay. So I sort of swigged my English tea and sat back in my chair and got my team together. And I told them what we had to do. Now, in normal circumstances, it might not be too arduous. The problem is all our conference booth material was in Africa. We couldn't get it to Vegas in time for the conference. So I sat in the meeting room, talked to my team, and one guy stood up at the end and he's like, Jason, can't be done.
So you got this thing bearing down on you. You got no booth.
Exactly.
I mean, is that it? You just got to get the booth set up?
There was a booth, there was a speech I had to give. The speech was fine, I've done that thousands of times,
right.
But certainly the booth was a major issue for us. You know, we paid $200,000 for this conference as well.
Wow.
So I sat back.
Wow. That's a big deal.
It was a big deal, for sure. So I sat back and thought, okay, how can I go about this? And I thought, I need to be a traditional project manager. I can't get my hands dirty on this. I need to be the coordinator, pulling all the pieces together. And that's what I did. Over the coming 2.5, 3 days, I did 5-minute meetings every 2 hours with my teams. We turned up in Vegas that Sunday. We had an amazing conference. The speech went well. For the $200,000 we invested, we got about 1.2 million in sales just from that one event. And all I can say, Chris, is anybody that hires me right now will not be disappointed in 6 months.
Well, you seem like a get-it-done kind of guy.
I believe I am.
Okay, Jason. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much.
Okay.